behind the scenes, do we realize where we really stand? Are we giving ourselves credit for the progress as if that was the destination? We're missing the point. Just because we might be doing well enough, is that good, or is that good enough relative to what you could and should have achieved?
I'm Bryan Falchuk, and this is the future of insurance.
Hey, everybody. A little different episode this week. I'm not doing an interview, taking a little bit of a break. I even went on vacation, which is not something I do normally. But I did want to come out with some thoughts to keep the conversation going. And it's something that was sparked by a conversation I had recently with an executive at an InsurTech that really struck me. As an InsurTech solution provider, so someone who works with insurers to try to better their results and better their operations. And he was asking me if I perceived the same thing he did in a conversation we were both a part of around the sense of hubris, really. And that's something I talk about a lot. I think hubris is, to me, the number one trait to look for in any company that you're considering going to work with or partner with. Is there hubris in the leadership? Is there hubris in the culture? Do they seem to think that, they've got it right, they're doing better than they are, or there isn't really room for them to improve because they're so successful? And I did perceive that in the conversation, and I do perceive that quite often in the conversations in our industry. And I think sometimes it's not quite saving face, but maybe, putting on a better face than you actually have. Like if we're at a conference, a lot of times people will give a perhaps more positive or, a positive spin on how they're doing and a positive positioning on how it's going, maybe talking down some of the pitfalls that they've fallen into or some of the difficulties, maybe talking up some of the way that their customers or their staff have received the new tools or the new approaches. That's a normal thing. Not saying I agree with it, but it's very normal, and we see a lot of that. But this is a little bit different. This was more behind the scenes. Do we realize where we really stand? Are we giving ourselves credit for not progress? Progress is a good thing. We should give credit to it, but sort of giving ourselves progress or credit for the progress as if that was the destination. And I know people who've listened to the show have heard me use the bank robbery analogy before, where it's like, last year I robbed 10 banks. This year I only robbed 5 or 2 or however many, but more than 0. And so isn't that great? And, it's not to say we shouldn't give ourselves credit and pat ourselves on the back and recognize and respect the fact that we've made the problem smaller. We've made positive progress. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It could be, that last year we only grew 10%. This year we grew 20%. Well, that's great. However, is that really the destination we're going for? And if we're acting like 10 banks to 5 banks, 5 banks is the end state, we're missing the point. So just because we might be doing well enough, or we're so big and we've made so much money and we're so great, that's all fine. But just recognize, is that good, or is that good enough relative to what you could and should have achieved? And I'm not saying that you should be downplaying the difficulties you face, and so giving yourself a tougher score than reality could have dictated. It's just recognizing progress isn't the same thing as achievement. And I do think from the conversations that I hear a lot of times, we as an industry, and I'm speaking more to carriers out there, but I've certainly heard this from many solution and service providers, we tend to talk about our achievements as if they're so fantastic and perfect and kind of the end state of things, when in fact we have a very long way to go. And this is why I say cash in the bank is one of the most dangerous things a company can have, is because it can breed complacency. Hubris is the same. When we feel like, well, we're so fantastic, we're so wonderful, we're so perfect, look how great we are. That's great. I'm all for positivity, self-love, and all that. But are you actually giving yourself credit that you shouldn't give yourself, and therefore robbing yourself of the drive, the determination, and the remit to push further ahead, to do better? And I think that's a wake-up call or a reminder many of us need. And the thing is, I know a lot of people feel that. And I think maybe as you move further up in an organization, you may lose sight of that a bit. But I think if you get back to your line staff who are out there on the front lines dealing with customers, dealing with the issues, processing the work, using the systems, I think you would quickly be reminded of the need to do seriously better. Not just better than we've done, not just 5 banks, but seriously better. I always say with that bank robbery analogy, remember, you're not supposed to rob banks. So still robbing banks, like that's great. You've made progress, but please don't act like that's good enough. I know there was a carrier I was talking to who was saying we're facing so many issues. This is in 2023 results, really difficult for a lot of, especially property carriers. So many issues. The fact that we're coming out of the year in a better place or, not losing tremendous amounts of money, that's a win. And we just need to recognize that. And I said, it's good. You should recognize that. But if you just stop there and say, we just didn't lose as much money as we thought we were going to, that's not a way to run your business. And that doesn't bode well for other tough moments that you're going to face, where your strategy can't just be to not lose as much as you thought you were going to. I always say, what if you could figure out how to thrive even in those tough moments? Imagine how strong your business would be when you don't face those tough moments. And that to me is the way we want to run things. So not just looking at being better than terrible or being better than how you used to be. It's good. You should do those things, but just keep in mind, there may be an even better state that you really should be striving for. There may be an even better state that you really should be striving for and can strive for if you push yourself. So I'm going to leave it at that. Quicker episode, just a thought starter, something to keep in mind. I've got some things coming out in the next few weeks and months that I hope will further that conversation, one particularly around underwriting performance. And one thing I will call out, a great thing to do to push ourselves forward is to get together as an industry, to talk about these things, to look for sources of inspiration and new solutions and use those to drive us forward. And there is one particular event that everyone talks about every year where there is just tons of innovation that we all talk about and focus on and see firsthand, and that's ITC. I'm excited to be there again this year in Vegas. It's October 15th through 17th, happening at Mandalay Bay and their convention center there. I'm going to be there as well, and I'm really excited this year. The Future of Insurance is one of the sponsors of ITC, and because of that, I was able to get a deal for all of you. So to get $200 off, just go to future-of-insurance.com/ITC for InsurTech Connect. And you'll see there's a code there that you can use at registration to get $200 off any new registrations for ITC Vegas for this year, for 2024. And I hope to see you there. And if you're going to be there, let me know. Maybe we can connect. It's a wild time. There's lots of people running around, networking, going to sessions, etc. So it's super busy, but it's also such a great time to see the people in person that we're seeing on LinkedIn, that we're talking to, that I've had on the show. I'm going to be doing some live interviews right there on the show floor as well, just like I did last year. I'm bringing you new episodes live recorded at ITC, and it's going to be a great time. So I encourage you all to go. And if it helps, that $200 off discount for registrations, always good to have. Better pricing if you can get it. Just go to future-of-insurance.com/ITC, and I give you the code there and a link to register, and you can get everything going. And I hope to see you there. And I will see you back next time. Thanks, everyone.